Hey guys, it's really exciting to come to you in this way. I'm hoping this video does the job that I want it to do. I hope it can be helpful. I would really like to download some psychoeducational information for you to watch so we don't have to take group time to talk about, to present it, but then we can maximize our group time talking about it. It was really exciting to get to meet all of you. At least for us, we're super excited about this work and helping you guys as best we can. So just to get to the point, I want to share this video with you. I would like you to watch it, make some notes on questions, things we could talk about. I really want to process it with all of you when we get to group this week. And again, we're looking forward to seeing that. So to that end, I'm just gonna transition into some information I would sure like to share with you. Now, some of this information is what I consider to be a critical reboot in the addiction, meaning in order to be successful, we have to be coming from a sex positive perspective. Now, you're gonna hear a lot about this from me, but I just want you to listen to some building blocks. Number one, what are urges? What are they? Where do they come from? Well, they come from our body, right? And specifically, what are those urges? Hunger, thirst, sleep, sexuality. These urges really do represent our basic needs. And they are there as a self-care system. Without urges, we die. And there is a bit of a myth out there that somehow sexuality is, we won't die if we don't have sex, so you should be able to handle that better than others. Well, that may be somewhat true, but the urge is extremely strong. It's designed to be compulsive like the other urges, because without it, the species dies. And so hunger, sexuality, they're very strong. But the key is all of them are designed to meet a need. I want you to think very clearly about that. So what happens if we ignore those urges? That's right, they come back stronger. This is why I'm always telling clients, we do not push urges away. That is not how we manage them. It doesn't work. It's a boomerang effect. They come back stronger. Now, let's talk specifically about the hunger urge. I want you to understand how this works. So, for example, all urges, including hunger, have a basic need. What's the need for hunger? I want you to think about that. Some people will say food or nutrition, but those are building blocks only to get us to what the actual need is, and that's energy. Our body needs energy. And so it gives us the hunger urge, and then we will eat. And then as a result of that, it will give us a pleasure reward. And that pleasure reward comes in two forms. It gives us the energy we need and a little bit of pleasure boost, a little bit of dopamine to help us really be able to repeat this behavior. See, if our body didn't reward this, it would not get repeated. So pleasure works as a reinforcer, but it's not the primary need. So let's just take a note of how that works. For example, if I eat a lot of Skittles and soda pop, what kind of energy will I get? Well, not very good energy, right? I'll get a little bit of a spike and then a crash. And what will happen then? Well, I get a lot of pleasure from that Skittles and soda pop, but the need for energy doesn't get met. And so I get stuck being more hungry. And so we end up just filling that urge and that loop. Now, the other way these urges can go bad is if I pair a negative emotion with it. For example, let's say somebody teaches me that hunger is bad. Well, what will I do if I grow up believing hunger is bad? I will restrict my desire to eat. I know you're all looking at me going, I don't think Dan's restricted his desire to eat very often. I get it. But we'll do that if that's what I believe. But remember what we said, what happens to ignored urges? They get bigger. So eventually I will eat because my body will force me. And what kind of eating will I do? If I've been restricting, I will binge. And then how will I feel? I will feel bad, and so I will restrict again. So whenever we pair a negative emotion to a core human urge, what we always get is binge restrict cycles. Now pay close attention to this. This is the beginning of what might become a compulsive addictive cycle. But what created it? Was it the urge itself? Or was it the shame that we learned to associate with it? It was the shame. It will always be the shame. This is what we're out to correct, is this negative view, shame-based perspective. Now, I want you to know that most guys have a conscientious awareness that sex is good, and what we often find is a highly unconscious, shame-based perspective on sex that keeps us in that restrict mode and then followed by the binge. Now, let's just apply all this to sexuality. What does the body need when it gives us a sexual urge? Now, remember, there's this universal truth here we want you to understand is every urge has an absolute basic need that it's designed to meet. What's that need? Now, a lot of guys will say to me when I ask this question, well, I need a release. I'm like, oh, you're talking about the pleasure reward, because that's what that is. What is the actual need that sexuality is designed to meet? It is a connection need. Now, I want you to understand this. There's a heart there, but I want you to know this is not a Valentine's Day crush that I'm talking about. The body needs legit connection. 100%. It's neurologic, it's physiologic. Just like the day the baby comes out of the womb and it's screaming and crying, nurses clean it and they give it to mom. And what's mom do? Mom holds it and it stops crying. And the baby has this felt sense of connectedness. And this is critical to understand, because for humans, this togetherness is what keeps us safe. That baby, of course, is safe because it's connected to mom. If it was lost out in the wilderness, it would get eaten by wild beasts, right? So it's the same even in our adult life. We're safer connected. Our body gives us urges to guarantee that we stay connected. So this bonding and connection and attachment are neurologic and brain-based, and they are often a greater sense of an emotional connection as well as physical, but absolutely the emotional is what we're really looking for. The physical serves as the reward and the anchor for when we found it. So what's next? What happens then if we get lonely? Well, the sexual urge will go up. I want you to understand this so clearly. The sexual urge go up not because you're a bad guy. And what's going to happen when your sexual urge goes up? Your brain's going to give you memory-based images of things that have aroused you in the past, whether it's past porn or women you've seen or your own partner, your wife. But that memory is just going to flood through images when that thing comes up, when sexual energy comes up. So I want you to think about that really clearly. This is a natural function. Your body's taking care of you. You get lonely, it's going to give you sexual urges to push you to socialize, to push you to connect, and that's your body taking care of you. But what happens if we have lots of bonding and connection and attachment? Our sexual energy will come down. Now, here's some interesting science I want you to understand. What we're talking about here is a sexual energy reduction, which usually doesn't mean it goes away, because the truth is humans, our sexual energy never really disappears. We can have a low day, but humans can have sex at any time. But what we mean is the intense compulsive piece, which is normal, calms down to a more natural level when we feel connection. And what does that mean? That means we feel close. There's lots of predictability in our relationship. We're not likely to be leaving each other or mad at each other. It means there's a bondedness and a closeness. So that is a natural place. Now, the result of this connection-based sexual energy is a sexual pattern in all humans that looks like this. It looks like this up and down, strong days, weaker days, strong days, weaker days. So the important takeaway here, however, is its ultimate responsibility, the connection's responsibility on the sexual system. It affects it in a great deal. So we have this pattern of strong days and weaker days, but it's constant. It's always there for all of us humans. And what do you think the distance is between peak sexual days? Well, the research says between 2 days and 2 weeks. And there's a great variation there for the sexes and for individuals. But it's actually a small window when you take into account other species on the planet that don't have strong and constant sex drives. What would that be? Maybe like elk, they have a rut that's once a year for a month long. Well, what's unique about that? When you don't have a strong and constant sex drive, they don't really live in family units after the rut, right? The bulls go back up into the hills, right? So the purpose of a connection-based sexual system is to keep us social, to keep us with each other, right? Every 2 days might be a 20-year-old guy or a 16-year-old guy or a 40-year-old guy, but every 2 weeks, maybe a woman who just had a baby, maybe she thinks about that twice a month at best, right? But it's actually a small gap. But let's talk about what happens when we put pornography in the path of our otherwise normal, healthy sexual pattern, our strong and constant sexual pattern. Well, what happens is porn gets involved, it comes in our path, and of course, sexual energy goes up. You would agree, right? Well, interestingly, however, it's true, but the research tells us that it doesn't last for very long. There's research that suggests one image will stimulate sexual arousal for 45 seconds to a minute. I think this was a University of Wisconsin study. I don't remember exactly, but they gave all of these people, men and women, one nude image. They put them in envelopes. They hooked everybody up to things that would measure sexual attraction, and they had to pull them out, and definitely people were aroused by that one image, but it very quickly went away. So the difference is in pornography, it doesn't have to go away, because what we do, right, is we just click on a new image. There's a very distinct difference in the brain in a brand new image. Now, not only is it sexual, it's highly novel. And that initial feeling has a lot of adrenaline in it. And then within 45 seconds, boom, new image, new image, new image. And so we start to ride this high of excessive amounts of dopamine because we're manipulating the brain into getting constant newness, constant new sexual things. And what it reveals, though, here is that the real problem with pornography really isn't nudity. The real problem is novelty and another issue we call supernormal stimulant. I really want you to understand these things. Now, first off, this constant novelty and supernormal stimulant produces compulsive intensity. It's very, very high. Whereas healthy sexuality tends to be definitely extremely satisfying, but also calming. After healthy sex, couples tend to have these calming moments together. They feel peaceful. They feel close. It's a wonderful experience. Now, I just want to drill down a little bit on novelty and supernormal stimulant and what that means. So, of course, novelty means many, many, many new, just like we're always looking for a new thing. And supernormal stimulant really reflects something exaggerated. So here's, this is a Nico Tinbergen. He was a Dutch biologist, and he really discovered supernormal stimulant. He won a Nobel Prize for it. Here he is with his Nobel Prize. But a supernormal stimulant is a supernormal stimulus in an exaggerated version of the stimulus designed to elicit a response more strongly than the stimulus for which it was genetically intended. Here's what Tinbergen did. Tinbergen studied animals. He was a biologist. He did hundreds of studies. Here's my favorite. He put all these butterflies in a cage, and he was pretty sure the males were attracted to the pattern on the female wing. So to test that, what he did was he took a piece of cardboard and he cut out a female bigger than all the other females, twice as big. No female was this big as the fake female. And then he put the exact pattern on the wing, but he painted it twice as bright. So here they have an exaggerated version of the butterfly, and what do you think happened? All the males flocked to it. They came right to it. And who'd they ignore? They ignored the females. Now think really clearly about this. If we were to interview the butterflies, the male butterflies, what might they say? They might say, if we said, hey, Mr. Butterfly, how you doing? They might say, well, not too well, because I seem to be stuck on this female, but I am not mating successfully, right? So porn is like this. Porn are these exaggerated versions of women, or their website's full of novel women, as many different types as you can find, and that is strategically designed to trap male brains. And it works, right? It will trap us. It's excessive dopamine, and it goes, now see, here's another example of novelty. Enough about my personal issues. Let's just really drill down. Okay, I think I want the next slide here. Just give me 2 seconds. So the point here was that the dopamine with a highly compulsive usually is 2 to 5 times more than the norm. Sometimes it's as high as 250 dopamine output. That's about the same as cocaine. Healthy sex is about right here at 150. So you see the trap. You see the trap that porn is. And the point I want to make here is that you're not the problem. You're not broken, right? Porn is the drug. Everybody says it is. It's not a metaphor. It legitimately burns you up. Now, what I want most out of this little video, this long video, was I'm really hoping that you'll watch it, that it'll make sense to you, that you understand this urge positive perspective and its effect on the brain, and that we can have a really healthy conversation about maybe how you learned about sex, about the shame that you feel now, and how hard it is to slip out of that compulsive cycle, and the role of connection in recovery.